With clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business?
Be free?
If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Yes.
Just leave it going, Nick. Leave it going.
All right. I'll play it just quietly in the background.
It is topical while we introduce the show.
It is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NPL Victoria Pod here on FNR Football Nation Radio. What you're listening to right now is the South Melbourne theme song.
Bring it up. Come on.
To this song. Do you want to get on the phone to Thanos Socrates and tell him?
But by Frozen Tears, they may win the championship, but they have, and the reason we're playing the music, Nick, they have won the premiership. Finally, South Melbourne, the best team all season, I think is fair to say, from start to nearly now finish, have finally, on the penultimate round of the NPL Victoria season, been crowned the premiers. Who would have thought? At the start of this year. Who would have thought?
Not me.
Not me.
I mean, it's been an incredible season for them. They got the job done against Andy City on Saturday. 1-0 down at Lakeside Stadium. Obviously, it's one of many, many big results throughout all three tiers of NPL. We have we don't have a premier yet in both NPL 2 and NPL 3, but we have another team that is promoted.
Yes, and we have a team that is all but going, barring a series of 10-0 losses, the likes of which we've never seen
before.
Oh, well, maybe we have seen them. I don't know. We should ask Tony Pasolia.
Tony.
But the losses, the likes of which we have never, ever seen. Dandenong City also, as a result of South Melbourne's premiership, all but going down.
I have a minor gripe. I am a little bit upset that we don't have as much chaos as we could have heading into the final weekend.
Well, it's because you used it all up on Friday night at CBS Smith, Nick.
If Dandenong Thunder had just hung on against Hume, even to a draw, actually, if they'd won, we would have them right in the mix for finals. We would have a relegation race going right down to the final day, except for Hume. Congratulations to Hume for all but securing their spot in the top tier for another year. They came from behind and beat Dandenong Thunder, meaning Dandenong Thunder cannot make the finals, meaning Dandenong City cannot send it. Well, they technically can, but it's not as realistic. The chances become like a 0.000001.
A 10-0 victory or something thereabouts.
It would take
over Bentley for Dandenong City, and it would require Hume to get shellacked by Oakley.
I got a question for you.
That is probably more likely because Oakley do have something to play for anyway.
What is more likely to happen then give me an example of something that's more likely to happen than Hume losing 10-0 and Dandy City winning 10-0.
Something that's more likely to happen.
You know what I think is more likely to happen than that?
What?
The sun's rising in the west and setting in the east. That's basically the sun just changes complete trajectory.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's more likely that I will be struck by lightning. Well, I shouldn't say that because I say that I was nearly struck by hail, as were many people who tried to play.
On Saturday.
If you had your community game on the weekend, your state league game, I'm not sure what division people who listen to this podcast play in. I'm not sure if people are listening to this podcast. Anyway.
Well, if you are, say good day.
If you were affected by hail, please do let us know. You can either message the radio station directly at FNR_radio, or you can comment on the live stream. But yeah, we had just chaos all over the place. The elements, the football. It's a lot to get through.
Yeah, well, we do definitely have one listener, and that is Craig Filer, who did come up to me on Friday night when we did the game, the Moreland City Pascoe Vale game on Friday night. He said to me, one of the first things when he said, "Hey Nick, how are you?" He said, "Well, it's good that I rocked up today. Otherwise, I'll be getting another shout out on the podcast about being a flake." And I actually felt bad for a second, but shout out.
That's the problem with making fun of people in your little corner of the internet. When you actually have to meet them in person, you feel bad.
Shout out to Craig. He was sensational to work with on Friday night for a great game. He's one of the best. He's one of the best NPL commentators. I really enjoyed working with Craig Filer. So shout out to him and all the guys at Football Out West, himself, Steve Curtin, and as well Tonchi Prusak. But Lachie, let's get into all the action. We've got Josh Parish joining us a little bit later for the game of the round, Heidelberg versus Avondale. But actually, before we get into that, I just want to make a bit of an announcement. I haven't even run this by you yet.
You're going to play the South Melbourne thing.
So I want to make a bit of an announcement here for those who may be living under a rock today and have been not on social media today. Congratulations to Lachie Flanagan and our guest Josh Parish, who are commentating the round of 16 Australia Cup games tomorrow on 10 play. Lachie commentating Oakley versus Brisbane City, and Josh commentating Avondale versus Brisbane Roar. You know what the only bad thing is about this? They're on at the same time. If they were stretched out, I could be able to have Josh and Lachie on separate days. Now I have to have the simultaneous.
Now Josh will just have to miss out. Yeah.
Well, basically. But end of the day, so was that Pakua? Zoom? Okay. Anyways, we'll get the Zoom fired up right now, Pakua. Thank you very much. In terms of that,
yes,
you know how hard it was. Like I'm going to BS it. You told me about this about a week ago, and you know how hard it was when people would ask me and be like, "Oh, Australia Cup coming up, round of 16. You're going to go to the Oakley game?" Actually, it was Athos Sirianos, FNR alum, and you know how hard it was for me to keep my mouth shut and say when he asked, "Is everyone else going?" And I had to say, wow. But I didn't actually.
I think I even replied as I will be there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you in what capacity, but I will be there.
But again, Lachie, to yourself, and we'll say it as well to Josh a little bit later, congratulations. Very well deserved for a sensational body of work over the last 3 years. Langy, NPL.TV, FNR.
I just want to make it absolutely clear to the people who are listening to this podcast, I genuinely did not know that this was going to happen. Didn't ask for it.
But that's okay.
But I'm very appreciative, Nick. And yeah, look, it's nice to see that good things can happen for those who come through the NPL, both as players sometimes, and in this case for one game for Josh and I. But look, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, Oakley, a team who have been really strong all season. Brisbane City are a fascinating outfit. I think 50, I think on the night, for a variety of factors, some of which will reveal themselves in due course. I think it's going to be a really tight game and a cracker. I'm glad to be alongside Andy Harper for the evening. But yeah, thank you. And I've had a lot of nice messages probably to some people who are listening to this show as well, who may or may not have also been hailed on this weekend. I'm not sure. But if you are one of those people, thank you as well. It's been a very heartwarming day.
I just got to say, Lachie, it has been a pleasure working alongside you for the last 3 years. Doing a lot of different games.
I'm not leaving.
No, I know. But Pakua, he really is leaving.
There was a reference I could have made there, but we don't swear on this program.
But I got to say, it's been a real pleasure working alongside you for many years, especially this year. Down at our Monday nights down at the Ven for Bulleen. I mean, that's been. You know what took it over the line? It was the Bulleen games that we did. I reckon I reckon it was definitely your work then. We had some fun on the Monday nights, but as well, of course, down at we've done, what else games have we done together, Lachie? We've done a few different games. We did a game out at
Paco
CB Smith.
We've done Paco a few times. We did Paco Langwarren last year.
Yes, out at
and
CB
then
Smith.
we did Pascoe Vale Avondale in round 7 of the then FFA Cup in 2021.
So we have done our fair share of games, but
It's
also, watching on from an outside point of view when you've been, jumping in. And Pakua, you want to come in as well? We've got Pakua.
Guys, we have an actual show that we need to do here.
No. Before we get to that,
now Pakua's in.
Come on, Pakua, come on.
I want for podcast listeners. Imagine the face of someone who wants the ground to give way beneath.
But this is more important than just the action, Lachie. We need to appreciate the good things that are
NPL
happening.
is more important. We should be talking about the NPL.
Don't get humble on us now. You were just talking before. Don't get humble. No, he wasn't. He was. We all a part of the FNR group. Very proud of Lachie and Josh, man. They've done some well, but I just want one promise before, they leave us to the big time. Lachie, can you just promise that you're not going to forget about the rest of us, your FNR crew?
Okay.
I just want to know.
I am going to answer this. I'm going to answer this question by saying I will be back doing NPL 2. NPL 2 on Saturday. I will be at Langwarren Manningham for the final day of the season.
But you know what?
And then I'll be at NPL 1 on Sunday.
So many new skills that you've learned.
Okay. Turn that microphone off. This is getting
hang on. We need to play some music for Lachie. He's saying sayonara.
Sayonara.
I'm just a simple man who wants to talk about the most recent round of NPL football. Yes, pleased for Wednesday, grateful for the appreciation, but come on. Match review is what the people want. Let's give the people what they want.
And maybe they'd be happy.
All right, we'll leave Don McLean. Don, you're going to have to stay quiet for now. Maybe we'll rip out a bit of American Pie a bit later on. Anyways, let's get into it. But Lachie, perfect segue, considering you're doing Oakley versus Brisbane City. Actually, no.
Perfect segue. Like it's a 5-minute long segue. Oh, yes, seamless.
Okay. Actually, no. Let's actually talk about the game we spoke about at the top. South Melbourne premiers for 2022. Wrapped it up on Saturday at Lakeside.
Indeed.
Joey Lynch and Zamir Kulash were down there for the call. Marcus Schrone with the goal, which made sure of it. It was basically done. It got a bit edgy after that loss against Port Melbourne, and they had to sort of go the hard way, go down the, I guess, not the way they would have liked. I think they would have liked to have had the last 2 games, with top spot wrapped up. But nonetheless, they can go into the final game against Avondale with that all sorted. But it was a fascinating contest for many different reasons, Lachie, and we've been talking about this for weeks about the how do you replace Harry Sawyer conundrum. But I mean, it did look like to an extent like they really did miss Harry Sawyer. They got the win, but is it completely all good for South Melbourne right now? Because they're going in without their main man into finals now. What are your thoughts coming out Saturday?
In the short term, yes, it absolutely is all good for South Melbourne right now. Like they've lifted the premiership for the first time in a number of years. I think Esteban Quintas becomes the 10th South Melbourne manager to lift the premiership, and he's a man who I think it's very fair to say, particularly after 2021, had his fair share of critics. Yeah. I would certainly count myself in amongst those and say that this is not a result that I would have necessarily expected him to do to achieve off the 2021 showing. But it is clear this team, while still containing a lot of those sort of fundamental principles of his style, have raised their game to another level here, are able to apply themselves more consistently. And they have been the most consistent team this season. Yes, there have been a few slip-ups against all the other Greek teams, really, Port Melbourne, Oakley, Heidelberg. But by and large, they have been the most consistent team over the stretch and are more than deserving of their success. So short term, I think you could see the discourse, particularly on soccer Twitter. South Melbourne fans are delighted with the situation. Even though it doesn't mean anything, it's not necessarily, or it doesn't look at this stage that it's going to deliver a place in the national NPL finals or anything like that. It's still a fantastic result to be the best team over the stretch of a season. Long term, I guess the jury's still out. I've been, which is something we'll talk about later, really impressed by Port Melbourne. Really, really impressed by Port Melbourne of late in particular. But yeah, you're right. There were maybe a few signs, particularly inside that first half, that South Melbourne was still working out the kinks of what will be, for all intents and purposes, a different approach with, at least for this game, Alan Webb leading the line. Dandenong City were okay in the first half. They were pretty good value. Tommy Semi had a few good shots on goal. John Quoll as well, who's recently made his return back from injury and was into the starting lineup. They didn't have it all their own way, bearing in mind Dandenong City, a side who are literally fighting for their survival. Problem for them is they did maybe have enough good chances in the first half to draw this game, a couple in the second too, but they needed to win. And in the second half, that was when Dandenong City started to flag a little bit. South Melbourne were able to take control. And look, the goal that got them there in the end from Marcus Schoen, was it pretty? Was it elegant? Was it a picturesque move? Not really, but it's enough. And Marcus Schoen, a man who's scored goals to win them championships, has won them a premiership as well. And look, again, absolutely well-deserved. So kudos to South Melbourne.
Goals a goal, Lachie. And in these sort of games, you just need to get the 3 points, and that's what South Melbourne did. I mean, Dandy City, on the other hand, I actually feel for them a little bit, because they have ended the season, I think, on quite a high note. Like, they've actually done the best I think they possibly can to stay up. They made some neat signings in the middle of the year. Unfortunately, they've just left it a little bit too late, and that poor goal difference is what's going to cost them at the end of the day, because, as we mentioned, they're technically still alive, but they're 15 goals plus 3 points behind Hume City. So it would take something special, but it's looking like a return to NPL 2 for them, which I think, honestly, they'll go back to NPL 2 in a very tight and contested NPL 2 next year, which we will talk about what's shaping up next year.
It's no guarantee that they come back up with quality.
They'd be up there, though, I think. I think certainly they'll invest heavily. They've certainly got the resources to go out and get some decent reinforcements in the off-season. But I think for them as well, considering how tight it is in around themselves, Hume, St Albans and Altona towards this tail end of the year, I think if they timed their run, if they were a bit more consistent earlier in the season, I think they would have been a much better chance of staying up this season. But at the end of the day, I mean, those early points from Altona, St Albans were really the difference in terms of getting them away from that relegation battle. And Hume just getting points when it mattered in that little stretch under Goran Lozanovsky, and then getting the win in their first game under Ersan Gulam. So disappointing for them. Where they go from here, I mean, Ljuban Palinic is still technically the interim. Whether he gets the full-time gig, I think he's put forward an okay case to maybe get that job full-time. It will be curious to see, I guess, what the powers that be decide, whether they decide to back Ljuban Palinic for one more season, or back him in full-time, or whether they go back to the shop window and try and bring in a new coach. That's certainly one sort of storyline to keep an eye on. But I mean, they end their season next week, I believe, just double-checking the fixture here. So they're playing against Bentley Greens at home, which they could still play
Sunday 3 p.m, as with all the games this weekend.
Of course, and Avondale hosting South Melbourne. So for both those teams involved, Dandenong and South Melbourne, they might not have much to play for, but they have a big say in how the playoffs play, especially South Melbourne. They don't want to lose.
Make no mistake, yes, South have effectively nothing to play for in this regular season, but I think given the... I wouldn't say outright animosity, because I don't think South Melbourne have had quite as much friction with Avondale as perhaps other clubs have in the past. But I do think there is definitely a tension there. We saw that definitely come to the fore in the amazing comeback that South Melbourne pulled off against Avondale earlier this season. I think that there will be a real drive, justified or not, from South Melbourne to try and stop Avondale making it into the finals. If for no other reason, discarding all the sort of other stuff that I've alluded to there, if for no other reason than the fact that Avondale have got the quality when it's on the park this season that could win from a fifth or a sixth or something like that. So that should be motivation, I think, for them enough to win that game. But look, as for Dandenong City, I do think, without wanting to oversimplify their relegation, like where did it all go wrong, I do think in a way the delayed nature of the mid-season window this year that didn't really come until the back two-thirds of the way into the season, clearly the players they've brought in have actually made them a difference. I think they've been a much more competitive outfit in this final stretch of games, and we have seen them get more points over that time, but it just didn't happen soon enough. If they had a Tommy Semi from halfway through the year, players like that could have really given them, I think, a fighting chance. But yeah, as you kind of said, Nick, I think it's 4 times this season that they've shipped 5 goals plus against Oakley, Heidelberg, South, I think. No, not South, sorry. I think maybe even Heidelberg twice.
Didn't they?
And Melbourne Knights.
They can see, Melbourne
Knights on the opening day of the season. You compare that with Hume, who, yes, haven't got the results, but they have been competitive in a lot of the games that they've lost this season. They've only shipped 5 goals once, and that was against South Melbourne. You can't, you competitive as you may be, you can't stay up. If your points are close by with Hume, you can't stay up if you're having way more blowouts than them. And really, like I said, don't want to oversimplify it, but I think those two factors make it pretty open and shut.
Interesting little subplot, I think, to keep an eye on this off-season is whether they keep Tommy Semi permanently.
I want to see it. He did so well.
Yep.
I can't see it happening, though, because I think Altona will look at that and say, well, we've got it. He's only on loan. I very much like he's been really, can't stress enough how good he, without always finding the back of the net every game. He has been so good for Dandenong City. I wouldn't be shocked to see Altona go, I wouldn't mind.
I think, honestly, if Dandenong City can
I also don't know if Tommy Semi would want to play NPL too. But
then again, though, but I mean, if it's not working for him at Altona, he's enjoyed his stay at Dandenong City, and they've got aspirations to go straight back up. Maybe he goes down to NPL 2 with them. I mean, there are some big name strikers.
That's true.
Who have gone down to NPL 2 this season and have had really good seasons and have put themselves in a position either to help their team get promoted or put themselves in the shop window for next season to potentially make that move back to NPL 1. I mean, there's so many of them, but I think Tommy Semi is certainly a name they should be looking at and a signature they should be looking to get on the...
It'll be an interesting one to keep track of.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. But let's move on to the second of the games. We did hint at it before, and it is Oakley versus St Albans. And Oakley's poor run of form continues, Lachie. A 2-1 defeat against St Albans. Not the sort of form they want to be taking into the end of the season, which as a result... They have now lost their position inside the top 2. Port Melbourne have jumped them as a result of beating Bentley. But they took the lead through Pantasopoulos inside the opening 15 minutes. A lovely goal from Anthony Pantasopoulos, just quietly.
Yeah, God, it was
before a equaliser through Guy, and then Temelkovski with literally the last kick of the game. What is it about the last kick of the game this week?
James Temelkovski, I think he's played 6 games since coming in mid-season, or well, I say mid-season, but technically it's called the mid-season window.
Yep, first goal for St Albans.
For St Albans, so what a time to get, a time and what a way to get your first goal. Because that broke a 9-game winless run for St Albans, a stretch over which they've scored just 4 goals, and they got their first home win since, can you guess how long it's been?
May 28.
Further back.
April.
Round 2.
So in February.
Round 2 against Dandenong City.
February.
Yeah, in Feb.
Wow.
A 2-1 win over Dandenong City in round 2. And that time they scored a 93rd minute winner as well. It was Chris Dibb on that day. This time it was James Temelkovski. And look, I spoke to Chris Taylor on Sunday after the game, and I think he would probably, or he's basically said that yes, St Albans, were they improved in the second half? Did they have a bit more even of the runnings in the second 45? Sure. But Oakley, inside the first 20 minutes of this game, had more than enough chances to put it to bed. Joe Knowles had a great few opportunities attacking that near post where Anthony Pantasopoulos did eventually find a gap. But honestly, when I did my time count when Anthony Pantasopoulos scored that goal, there had been so many high-quality chances and so many scares for the St Albans defence that I thought, God, we must be, 25, 30 minutes through this game, maybe even longer. We must be not far from half-time. It was 14 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
Genuinely, Anthony Pantasopoulos scored on the 14th minute, but they had, honestly, by the time he scored, the game could have been over. So I think Chris Taylor sort of lamented the fact that finishing wasn't there. He said, I should have, in hindsight, thrown Panther forward because he was showing the rest of the attackers how it's done. So yeah, that profligacy really cost them, as he said it has done a few times this season, which I think was a fascinating point to be made. But yeah, look, Oakley playing as many games as they are at the moment. We saw something similar happen with Bentley Greens, who are also going deep into different cups, have that shock loss against Altona. I think when you're playing so much football, especially when 365 days ago, before that as well, we were playing barely any.
Yeah.
Injuries are going to rack up. Things are going to take their toll. Shock results are going to happen. And in the same way that it happened to Altona a few weeks ago, and they're suffering an injury, a real glut of injuries, I think Oakley are experiencing similar.
I think if Oakley, though, despite this poor run of form and all the injuries they're having right now, I still think that if they can get their cavalry back in time for finals, they are still a team you don't want to be coming across in that semi, because right now...
Well, absolutely. And also the first, despite the absentees, the first 11 is still really good.
Yeah, it's just they're wrecked. They're exhausted. Yeah. They're spent.
I mean, really, yes, they are, but they are they've still got that quality to win any game against any side on any day. In a one-off match.
It's funny because I remember when we spoke to Wade Decker,
especially because they might get a break as well if they can get into second.
We spoke to Wade Decker right at the start when we started doing this podcast, and Wade said that basically he was like, I remember I asked him something along the lines of, you guys ready for this tough stretch that's coming up? How do you guys feel going into it? He goes, we're feeling good, but maybe ask us in a couple of weeks and we're probably going to have a very, very different answer. I'm very curious to hear how the Oakley players are feeling. Like, they got a home game tomorrow, obviously, against Brisbane City in the Australia Cup. You have to wonder, right now at this stage of the season, I mean, the quarterfinals will be the first week of finals, potentially, or they'll play midweek. After that, I think that, potentially their scheduling, say they win tomorrow, it would mean that they might not have, with the way FA scheduled, they might not have to play on that weekend. But you have to wonder, what are you prioritising right now? A deep run in the cup or a chance at winning the championship? Because they can still snatch top two. I mean, they've got a must-win game this weekend. It's as much as it is big with the Australia Cup, I mean, you want to be putting your best foot forward in the domestic competition, where I think it is their best chance to get some more silverware. Playing Hume City this week, they need Melbourne Knights to do them a favour against Port Melbourne. It's going to be an interesting one nonetheless. But for St Albans, on the other hand, Lachie, just quickly, they finish off their season in what is the dead rubber of all dead rubbers.
It's the ultimate dead rubber.
Against Altona at Paisley Park. That is really the, it is the ultimate dead rubber. It's as dead rubber as you can get it. It's very much just, there's no other way to describe it.
And these are two teams.
No disrespect to the two teams.
Who have really sort of crawled through the back end of this season. They're probably, would have the worst form lines of just about any team, with the exception of, obviously the Eastern Lions. I wouldn't even... I think they will both just be secretly hoping. Yes, you want to end the season on a high note, but probably secretly hoping just to let's just let's just let the 90 minutes slip by and we can put a line through this season, regroup for next year. St Albans, I'm fascinated. I know that their budget is quite, well, I understand at least their budget is quite tight. It'll be interesting to see where they strengthen in the off-season, because I think a lack of what's really hampered them, because the defence, while enthusiastic and sometimes prone to missteps. Nikola Jokovic holding the record, the single season record, taking it out this year for most yellow cards in a season with 14, breaking his own previous record from 2017 and 2016. It is up to 15, as you said. There's a solid defence there on its day. The midfield is, Xander Guy has had a really good debut season. I think in Victoria, I think an attacking midfield presence is really something that's slipped them by. Someone who can supply Xander Guy a little bit better, their wide players a little bit better. The link-up has just been a bit bereft at times this season, and Xander Guy has looked quite isolated. So fascinated to see if that's something that they've picked out as well. They might think differently to me. I don't know. I might not know what I'm talking about. But I'm interested to see how they strengthen in the off-season. Yep. Altona will be curious as well.
All right, let's keep rolling, Lachie, while we're continuing this nice little roll they're on right now before we get to Josh Parish a little bit later. Bentley Greens 0, Port Melbourne 1 at Kingston Heath. Talking about teams that have been pillaged in terms of injuries and in terms of fixtures piling up. Bentley is another one of those teams. Drop points at home. Disappointing, I think, for Bentley that they weren't able to, I guess, they probably are at this stage of the season as well, just hoping to get into finals right now, because I think once they're in there, they can do a lot of damage. But nonetheless, they drop points. It's a massive win for Port Melbourne, who continue to be the team that are just sliding under the radar and quietly becoming the team. Lachie, we spoke about it. They're quietly becoming the team no one wants to play in finals. And they're right now into second. And as a result, Bentley, on the other hand, are hanging on by a thread.
Can you hear that, Nick? It's very faint. Podcast listeners might be able to hear it as well if you just turn your volume up. You know what it is, Nick?
What?
It's the clip-clop of the dark horse. Port Melbourne are galloping their way into the finals, and they are absolutely the team that no one has given enough respect to this season. I genuinely think that they could be the threat.
They could win.
As you said, the team that no one wants to face, because I genuinely believe that they could go all the way.
It would be it would be a shock. It would be a biggest shock, I think, if they won. In terms of just an amazing story for a team that's really come from nowhere to win it, Port Melbourne, that would be incredible. No disrespect to them, but the whole story surrounding it would be amazing. Lachie, I mean, just going quickly through the season guide, they haven't played they've only played finals, I think, once since they've gotten into the NPL in 2018. And they've never won a final. And right now, they're in a position where they could win the whole bloody thing. It's amazing.
I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think the one thing that's really going for them is you think about all the other teams that are going to make finals. And I feel like there's, with every single one of them, there's like a lingering concern there in some way, shape or form of like varying levels of severity. So, humor me here. We'll go through the table. South Melbourne, obviously, yes, premiers. But there's that Harrison Sawyer problem to work through, and not every side is going to be Dandenong City, especially not in the finals, Oakley, carrying a lot of injuries, have played a lot of games. Green Gully, again, have played a lot of games. Looked really tired in that catch-up game they played against the Knights. I'm going to be interested to see how they go against Eastern Lions on Thursday night. Avondale, carrying injuries, playing Australia Cup games. Bentley Greens, carrying a lot of injuries, have come off the back of Australia Cup games. Heidelberg have looked quite tired. They've lost back-to-back games since their game against Brisbane. They've been second best in both of those games. Every club who is a chance to make finals has got some sort of big problem they're contending with. Port Melbourne are firing fit. This is the same team, pretty much the same squad they've kept all through the way. They didn't bring anyone in mid-season. They haven't had any major injuries as far as I can tell. This squad is solid. This squad knows exactly what it's doing under Adam Pittick. And they have got ticker. They have got so much ticker because their front press against teams it's really, really strong. I must say, against Avondale and Bentley Greens, yes, as I said, sides that are dealing with their own issues at the moment have played a lot of football. While Port haven't, they have run them absolutely ragged. And yes, Port only won 1-0 on the day, but they had enough chances, again, inside the opening 20 minutes to put this game to bed. Really, really good game, high-quality football. But Bentley, yes, they survived the opening press. But the thing was, Bentley were in the game, but when they needed to find that sort of next gear, that next level, they just didn't necessarily have it in the tank, and they didn't necessarily have the cattle off the pine. They could do it. They had Yaga Mustafa, but the rest of the bench was pretty much all youth players. Port Melbourne have none of the concerns that the other teams do, and they've gotten solid results against most of these sides, most if not all of these sides this year. They've beaten Avondale, they've beaten Bentley, pretty sure they've beaten Green Gully, they've beaten Oakley, and they've beaten South. I'm just saying.
That if you're just wondering, that is the sound.
Anyway, that is my Sharkies manifesto.
That is the Jaws music that is looming ominously.
Our producer Pakua has her head in hands right now after that.
I'm telling you, the Sharkies are coming right now, and they are, well, just having a look, Lachie. The last bit of silverware they won was in 2010 when they won the State League 2 Northwest Championship. They've twice won the VPL in 95 and 2001, but it's been a long time between drinks for some silverware.
Sorry, Nick, quick correction. Oakley, the only side in the top 6 that Port have not beaten this year.
Well, right now, Lachie, it doesn't matter who's second or third. If Oakley win that first final or Port Melbourne win that first final and Oakley finish second, they will meet in a semi. Second versus third. And God, that would be a very intriguing game in a one-off game. It would be a very, very intriguing game. But nonetheless, Port Melbourne getting the job done. Obviously, taking on Melbourne Knights at home this weekend. A win will wrap up second place, while Bentley, as you mentioned, have to go to Dandy City. Not an easy game. A loss and they can still, it would take something incredible, but a loss and they could still play finals. A draw won't be enough, but a win, and barring Heidelberg don't win by more than 6 goals plus their margin that they win against.
It is against the Eastern
Lions. That's what I mean. There is a disclaimer to this.
So you're telling me
there's a chance. So Bentley, nonetheless, they basically have to win. They win and they're basically in. They can still finish as high as 4th. So depending on what happens with Green Gully's catch-up game against said Eastern Lions on Thursday night. But nonetheless, they have to win. It is quite simple. They must win, Lachie. Still waiting on Josh, so we'll come back to the Heidelberg-Avondale game in just a second.
If Bentley are able to get any of their players back, though, like I see no reason. Like I think this is going to be an absolutely brilliant final series. Yes, South Melbourne have clearly over the regular season been far and away the best side, but I genuinely think you could mount a strong argument, injuries notwithstanding, for every team that are currently in the 6 being capable of winning the championship from the position which they're currently in.
Before we get to Josh, Lachie, let's quickly race through the Friday night game on between Melbourne Knights and Altona. A 1-1 draw there at Knights Stadium. Mentioned a bit of the dead rubber. But nonetheless, a bit to take out for Altona. 4 points from their last 2 games after a bit of a poor run. So they're locked in for another year in the top tier. While Melbourne Knights, I mean, it's another point for them after what's been a bit of a tough season, but ending the season on an okay note, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would have much preferred to have come away from this game with a win. They certainly, I think, were pretty strong across the 90. They created, I think, more goal-scoring chances than their opponents in Altona. But look, Altona had a really nice moment of attacking quality, particularly in that second half. I mean, the goal, the equaliser for Robert Harding, which was just 10 minutes later, Mohamed Soumaoro scores, which, by the way, breaks a record that has stood all season until this point, in which every game so far or prior to this evening that Mohamed Soumaoro had scored in for the Knights, Melbourne Knights had won.
Wow.
So this is the first game for this season in which Soumaoro has scored and Melbourne Knights have not gone on to win. Still undefeated when he scores, so that is still a boon, but that winning run finally came to an end. But what a ball that was in from James Exidius for Robert Harding. And look, were Altona the better side on the night on the balance of play? No, but look, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Melbourne Knights have been here before. They've had plenty of games where they've been competitive. They've maybe been the better side, but they haven't been able to make it count. And I think there would have been some Knights fans in Sunshine on Friday night for the last home game of the season and being like, yep, it's the last home game of the season, but it looks exactly like the first home game of the season.
Yep, absolutely. As we mentioned, Melbourne Knights on the road this weekend against Port Melbourne, so they can still shape things a little bit, while for Altona, the dead rubber of dead rubbers.
Another team who I will be intently, probably we're reaching like notifications turned on territory for Melbourne Knights' transfer activity.
I am very curious because they have to do something this off-season. Also, who's going to coach them next year? That's the other subplot to all this.
I actually think we're about to speak to a man who actually has a pretty interesting theory about this. I'm not sure whether it's for broadcast, but we have spoken about it.
That's all right. That's all right. Whether he wants to or not, that's up to him. If not, keep his sources and his secrets close to his chest. That's fine. We can chat to him about it later. But nonetheless, time for Game of the Round here on the NPL Victoria Pod. Josh Parish has joined us to go through Heidelberg versus Avondale. Josh, you were on board down at Olympic Village it was a bit of a blustery, cold day.
It was definitely a blustery day.
It wasn't the nicest of days to be out and about, but nonetheless, an entertaining contest, and Avondale, one hell of a statement.
Yeah, it was a windy day, gents. Evening, guys. My bucket of chips went flying a couple of times in the pre-match. I'm not going to lie. But we brave the conditions. We continue. We turn the effects mic down and we struggle onwards. And the game more than made up for the weather, because Avondale just put on a finishing clinic in the first half and cut through Heidelberg in transition. Heidelberg had plenty of the ball, had lots of set pieces and butchered chances of their own. But Avondale, 4 shots, 3 goals in the first half, and some really well constructed moves. And Heidelberg just had no answer for their pace up top. They made a significant change by dropping Liam Boland into more of a number 10 role, with Yite Towns and Christian Trajeski playing as the 2 deeper midfielders in more of a 4-2-3-1. And Yusuf Ahmed played as an out-and-out striker. And I think, that was a big change from Avondale and a new lease of life that Yusuf Ahmed needed after struggling this season. And, he was running beyond the last line of defence, timing his runs really well. And Boland and Trajeski were picking him out with balls over the top or through the lines every single time. So Heidelberg really had no answer for the pace and the precision of those counterattacks. And Avondale really made the most of their chances in the first half and made it very difficult for Heidelberg to come back into the game.
It's a really fascinating change. I think we might have spoken about it on the podcast before, or maybe it's a conversation I had with Joey Lynch while watching the Port Melbourne game about the prospect of Liam Boland maybe dropping into a midfield role. The thing is, a lot of the time when he's playing striker, he drops so deep anyway in an effort to facilitate movement ahead of the ball that sometimes he drops so deep that there's no one actually to get the pass through to when he does receive. So almost in a way, having 2 of him would be good. But I notice also that Stefan Valentini returned to the starting 11 for what would have been certainly the first time in quite some time. Steph Zinni was back on the bench. Are those reinforcements sort of returning to Avondale at the right time? Are we seeing a bit more of the Avondale of old as we head towards finals, even though finals not quite guaranteed?
It's funny, just to dwell on the Boland thing for a second, his favourite player is Harry Kane, and he's a mad Tottenham Hotspur supporter. So seeing him have a similar career trajectory to Harry Kane, at least in a tactical sense, is actually very interesting, because I think he continues to model his game off his favourite player. As we all try to. But Liam Boland's
some with
really
more success than others.
But yeah, in terms of the players returning from injury, Stefan Valentini got through 70 minutes. He looked completely exhausted after the game. I spoke to him briefly. He said it was his first start in nearly 3 months. He's had very inconsistent football this season, has tried to come back, has re-injured things. But yeah, it did him so good to get through 70 minutes. I think we'll see a sharper Valentini for the rest of the campaign after that. I wouldn't say he looked like the Valentini of old just yet. He looked a bit rusty, but there were still some real moments of quality. In terms of Zinni, a really disappointing one for him, because he actually was withdrawn from the bench because he injured his hamstring again in the warm-up. So he suffered a setback. So he's unlikely, I think, at this stage to play against Brisbane Roar tomorrow night, and we'll have to wait and see for the weekend against South Melbourne. But unfortunate for Zinni. Who declared himself fit and really wanted to play in these important games, and then obviously it ended up being too soon for him. But they do have a lot of players coming back into contention. I mean, Matt Reid was still suspended. They played Phil Riccobene at centre back, and he hasn't played a lot of football this season, but really demonstrated a lot of leadership. Kalulu Kamara actually won Player of the Match on Avondale's socials and was dogged in his marking attempts on Kane Shepherd. I thought he did a really, really good job, and that's the role he's being lined up for against Charlie Austin tomorrow night. So he'll have to be at that same level. But yeah, Avondale starting to get their first choice players back, and you can see the difference. And as Zoran Markovsky said to me after the game, it took them 23 weeks to find some decent football, but they've suddenly found it.
Well, that's the beauty of finals. Yeah. You can take 24 rounds as long as you do enough to get in the six. Hey, that's all.
Once you're in, you're in. You got to buy a ticket to win the raffle at the end of the day. But Josh, one team who might not have a ticket to the raffle is Heidelberg. It seems like they've hit a bit of a wall after the slow start, the big run in the middle where it looked like they were the team that no one potentially wanted to play in the finals. But the last 2 weeks, 2 devastating losses at home against finals contenders, a good chance for them to solidify themselves inside the 6. What did you take out of that? Because, I mean, defensively, they looked all over the shop.
Yeah, the defensive side of things was the biggest issue. And George Katsakis attempted to make a pretty radical change and move to a back three in the second half. And I can't say it paid off. Even though it was 1-1 on the scoreboard in the second half, Avondale butchered that many counter-attacking opportunities where they had 4-on-3, sometimes 4-on-2 opportunities. They got a bit sloppy towards the end. And if things had gone poorly for Heidelberg and Avondale had been a bit more clinical in the second half as they were in the first, it could have been 7 or 8-1. It really could have been really, really ugly for Heidelberg. They did not have the rub of the green, let's say. Adrian Zara forced off with an injury. They lost Joey Franich as well. So forced to replace their entire midfield in the first half, less than ideal. And then Sean Ellis got kneed in the face by the Avondale goalkeeper, Tom Yonkerman. It didn't look right. They substituted him immediately after sort of the concussion checks and so forth. So hopefully he's okay, but they might have been being cautious because the result was sort of beyond doubt by that point. They lost some players, but they do seem to be running out of steam a bit here. And it wasn't as if they didn't have their chances. Kane Shepherd had a free header from 6 yards in the first half. There were set pieces. They were very, very threatening, and the delivery was really good. Honestly, Milan Roberts could have had a hat-trick. He butchered at least two gilt-edge chances, one of which sort of fell to him about 8 yards out after a goalmouth scramble, and one of which was a free header at the back post with the goal gaping, I guess, because the keeper had come and not collected. So, Heidelberg looked very, very dangerous, especially off those set-piece situations, but defensively they were completely at sea.
I guess the reprieve for them, and in some ways also the danger for Avondale, Heidelberg's final fixture of the season is against the Eastern Lions at Gardeners Creek Reserve. Obviously a relegated Eastern Lions, but an Eastern Lions who has taken points off Heidelberg earlier this year. Bentley Green's coming up against Dandenong City, but Avondale playing against a South Melbourne. Now, a South Melbourne side who, technically speaking, have nothing to play for. But when Nick and I were talking before, Josh, I feel like there's still going to be a pretty keen focus from South on trying to do their best to get Avondale knocked out of finals contention. Do you see Avondale being up to the task with the Australia Cup games in mind of getting the result on the final day against South? It would be a pretty Herculean effort if they did.
Well, the minds are willing. The confidence is high. It depends if they've got the bodies. Seriously, it's just a physical limitation at this point. They were in great spirits, as you would imagine, after the win against Heidelberg, and they seem to have really clicked and found their confidence. It's just a question of whether they can back up after the Australia Cup game. And honestly, I don't know. I think it's going to be tough going against South. Maybe South will slow the game down a little bit the way they play. That could potentially give Avondale a bit of a breather if it's not an end-to-end kind of open game. It's going to be a little bit more cagey. But then again, South have some bruising bodies in that team, and Avondale, the one criticism you would have from the weekend is that they were pretty shoddy defensively off set pieces, and South Melbourne are the team that thrives on set piece situations with Max Mickela's long throws in the corners. Like, they're lethal in those situations. So I could see Avondale copping goals if they don't tighten up defensively from corners and those throw-ins.
Hey, Josh, before we let you go, it'd be rude for us not to ask about Preston, because, they're the championship, they're 1 point away from wrapping it up this weekend. A big win against Ballarat City in the final home game this weekend. There's a good vibe around the place at the moment, closing in on promotion and all the excitement around the potential national second division. I guess take us through the last couple of weeks, particularly last week as well. Last game at home, getting that bit of a boost on Melbourne City as well. But it's coming a bit of a blow, though, coming a bit of a cost. The key man out for this weekend.
Yeah, it remains to be seen whether Connor Bell can back up after he copped a knee to the hip and had to be taken off after 2 goals. He was destined for a hat-trick. So we'll have to wait and see how he pulls up. But in terms of the title race, it was an emphatic win over Ballarat. They did cop the first goal after 4 minutes, and everyone was kind of stunned, but they kept calm. And they showed off their depth as well. They were missing a couple of midfielders, but Rob Naumoski came in and laid on 4 assists, which is just a superb performance from a guy who's been sitting on the bench for most of the year and has had some troubles with injuries and fitness of his own. So, that just demonstrates the depth the quality in the Preston team. And obviously they were glued to the Melbourne City result beforehand and were hoping that Box Hill could hang on for the 2-1 win. And if they had, Preston would have wrapped up the title on the weekend. But City, showed that fighting spirit and came back and got an equaliser. So that means that a draw for Preston will do against Box Hill. But it's a team that they've already lost to this year. And it's a team that's playing on a pitch that we hear is not in good condition. And they've also taken points off every other top team in NPL 3 this year. So they've played spoiler so many times. So it's a potential banana skin. I'm not going to lie. Preston are going there to win. Lou Atsevsky told me after the game he's never coached for a draw in his entire career, and he's not about to start. So they're not going to change their approach. They're just going to try and keep doing the same things that have led them to win 10 in a row. But Box Hill are a stern test, and Melbourne City playing against Springvale White Eagles, you'd expect them to win. Although Springvale, of course, fighting for their lives in the division and fighting against relegation.
Other question I wanted to ask you, Josh, about the final day of the NPL 3 is I see that Nunawading remain a mathematical, very much a mathematical chance of getting into that final promotion relegation playoff spot in 4th. Victory, of course, wrapped theirs up in 3rd over the weekend, but 3 points separating Western United and Nunawading. Western United with just a 3 advantage in goal difference. They played Geelong on Saturday afternoon, while Nunawading play a Victory side who, as I mentioned, have already been promoted. Do you see the status quo, the present standing of the table remaining and Western doing enough to get a win over Geelong and making any potential Nunawading upset irrelevant?
Geelong have been a different team in the second half of the season. When I saw them in round 3 and Preston rolled them very easily, I thought this team's getting relegated. But it hasn't been the case. They found a sterner edge, a sterner resolve. Of course, they did lose against Melbourne Victory last week, but I can see them putting in a shift against Western United and making it difficult for them. They're a tough team and they're tough defensively. Nunawading, completely different side, very expansive. Of course, that's their club philosophy. Up against a Victory team that doesn't have too much to play for, I could definitely see Nunawading winning that game. And with AJ McPhee level with Connor Bell on top of the Golden Boot standings, they're going to be trying to feed their star striker as well. It's he's in great form and one of the real underrated players in Victorian football, I think. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Of course, you look at the goal difference and so forth, and Western United does have a better goal difference, but enough of a swing, 3 goals either way, it could happen. I'm not ruling it out.
See, I'm very conflicted about that Golden Boot race because I really like Connor Bell. He's a very nice man. Always Nick when you spoke to him as well. Really nice guy. However, McPhee is a Scotsman, so the loyalties are somewhat divided there. I've never met him, but he is Scottish, so he's basically my family.
Famously, Lachie, you tried to rob Connor Bell of one of his goals on a Preston broadcast. I think you're actively working against him.
No, we have buried the hatchet. We've had conversations in public, in private, and in mediation, and it's all been worked out. The final question for you, Josh, down the foot of the table, as you sort of alluded to before, Springvale still fighting for their survival. They're faced with very much an uphill battle to do that against a Melbourne City side who have got something of their own to play for. But it would also be contingent on Ballarat City getting an upset over North Sunshine Eagles. Is there a more likely candidate in your view to be heading down to State League 1, all things told?
I think Ballarat have a chance. North Sunshine, nothing to play for. Ballarat are much better at home, of course, and sides who have to travel the long trip to Ballarat don't tend to fare as well.
Oh, what a trip it is, though. Going 110, so good.
Sensational.
Versus Springvale, who are playing against Melbourne City, who need to win to keep their title hopes alive. I think Ballarat can stay up. I really do. I think they can turn that around.
Well, it's going to be a curious watch. It's going to be very exciting on Saturday and on Sunday with all that's going on. And Josh, again, we spoke about at the start of the show. Congratulations again for tomorrow night. Really looking forward. I was saying to Lachie, the only bummer is you're both on at the same time. So, if there was a way that you could have one earphone on one and one earphone on the other, then that would be great. But we're going to have to do the split screen if can't get to one of the games. But Josh, again, congratulations. Very well deserved. Can't wait to hear you on the call as well tomorrow night. And any plug, I guess, for everyone at home, where can we listen to you tomorrow night?
Yeah, live on 10 Play from 7:25 p.m. I'll be with Archie Thompson. Can't wait to commentate alongside a guy I grew up supporting. It's a bit of a dream for me, to be honest. And Avondale, if they show the kind of counter-attacking verve that they did against Heidelberg, they can give Brisbane Roar some problems.
Never know.
And potential rubbing my hands for a potential cup set.
The
gents.
cup setometer is just ticking away.
It's ticking.
Off in some laboratory. My cheap plug though, don't listen to Josh, listen to me and Harps instead. Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us,
the
Josh.
best man win.
Absolutely.
Ratings war.
It's like Anchorman. It's like the fight in the car park. You guys are going to meet like at FV headquarters and meet in the car park, and it's going to be every commentator.
I could never lay a glove on Josh. He knows.
Anyways, Josh, again, thank you.
Well, in all seriousness, the first thing I'm going to be doing on the final whistle is going back and listening to Lockie's.
Well, you might not have to, because Lachie could still be going. I mean, Teo Pellizzeri predicted a 4-4 draw on TNC on Sunday at Oakley, Brisbane City. So if your game ends in 90, Lachie will still be going.
Josh, I look forward to you.
It does have the makings of one of those bonkers NPL versus NPL games. It does. I've got a feeling too, Lachie. I think you might have a bit of a thriller.
Lachie, it sounds like you want like a boring one now.
No, not at all. Not at all. I hope you guys are right.
Anyways, Josh, thank you so much again. We'll chat to you again very soon.
Thanks, gents.
Josh Parish, obviously FNR alum. Catch him on the Lions Den as well on Thursday here on FNR. Obviously looking ahead to that big championship game. Lachie, let's go into just quickly. I think we've basically done our NPL 1 wrap. Quickly, prediction for Thursday night. I mean, before we get to obviously our predictions for Sunday, but
Thursday we have
the
got
catch-up game, which still has so much like riding on it for Green Gully. They just need to get a point. For me, I'm going Green Gully 2-0.
You just think, surely they have to win.
You think so?
They need 3.
Oh, we forgot about one game.
Uh-oh.
Hume City, Dandenong, but finish off your prediction.
Oh my God.
Go back.
And it was such an important game as well. I can't believe that. For shame. Green Gully are going to win.
Yeah.
But it just... They were so tired against Knights, and Knights are a different kettle of fish.
But you
to
think
Eastern
like enough rest? Oh, actually, they played Sunday.
They need 3 more points. That if they win,
one more point
guaranteed
to wrap up finals.
Yes, 1 more point to wrap up finals.
6 points basically wraps up a home final.
Yeah.
So,
look, they'll do it. They'll do
Okay.
enough to get the result.
Let's go back to Saturday night. Sorry to Hume City fans out there. Dandenong Thunder fans probably don't want to hear about it. But anyways, Hume City are safe for another season. Erskine Gullam's first game in charge results in a come-from-behind win. It looked like Dandenong Thunder's finals hopes were going to stay alive when they took the lead through Braden Mann. Again, the build-up, as Craig Fowler said, there were some lovely feet in the build-up that got the ball in towards Braden Mann. But in the end, 2 goals coming right at the end for Hume City. Goals coming from Sammy Fordy's first goal of the season. Then Mark Ochiang, a superb solo effort going all the way up and scoring a brilliant goal to win the game with only minutes to go. So as a result, Hume are basically safe. Dandy Thunder, well, it's a mid-table finish for them. It's a perfectly balanced season. 10 wins, 5 draws, 10 losses, 34 goals scored, 34 goals conceded. So I know that's probably going to change unless they draw. Well, for the perfect balance, they have to draw, and then we'll have a perfectly balanced season. But nonetheless, it is unfortunate for Dandy Thunder, but parity for Hume City that at least for next season, they're going to be in the top 10.
It is, but I think at the end of the day, like these, as much as this podcast in particular has probably pushed the, Thunder
Yourself
can
in
still,
particular.
okay, me, yes, I'll admit, Thunder can still play finals propaganda, and I do think they're a good side. They would have known deep down that really the odds were very, very long compared to a Hume City side whose threat of relegation was, comparatively speaking, very, very real. But this was a really, really good game, and I'm delighted for Mark Ochieng, to be honest. He's chipped in with a lot of impressive and important goals for Hume over the stretch. I remember absolute banger he scored in the Australia Cup last year, I think against Port, which helped them on their way to the win and through to that game against Melbourne City where they eventually bowed out. But I do think that this is the just cause, or is the just result rather. I think Hume had so many games this season even throughout the manager changes, I mean, we haven't even talked about the manager change. It was surprising to see Goran Lozanowski head out, but a massively pleasing narrative for Ersan Gulam as well, because getting the win that keeps the side up, he had such a horrible event occur to him earlier this season with the ACL injury that has pretty much forced his retirement from football into the coaching world. But great to see him get a positive result. And I think Hume have been competitive in so many games this year where they haven't got the result and are clearly better than what their results were suggesting, particularly at the start of the season when everyone was so shocked to see them doing as poorly as they did. I think this is the universe working itself out and Hume can regroup. And I'm glad because Hume add a lot to the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they're a big club.
Oh, yeah.
They're a massive club and they're too good to be where they are. I mean, they're a finals contender.
Yeah.
It's disappointing that it's been a tough year for them, but nonetheless, they stay up. Dandy Thunder, I think, next year can hold their head high going into next season. I think they've got a good little project building under David Chick.
I mean, Thunder you expect to strengthen. Hume you expect
So it's
to
going to be even more intense next season. I mean, it could go to, and you expect Melbourne Knights too. That's 10
Melbourne
teams.
Knights could strengthen.
That's 10 teams. Lachie, let's not think too much about 2023 just yet, all right? And you just think about the teams that are coming up.
I'm not going to lie, for many reasons, I think many of them football related, I think a lot about 2023.
It's going to be exciting. Dandy Thunder host Green Gully in the last game of the season. Obviously, they can still play spoiler to Green Gully and as well Hume City on the road against Oakley. So they just need to get a point to basically assure themselves or don't get smashed. Don't ship. That's all I can say. Lachie, let's quickly go down to NPL 2. I'm still recovering from last Friday.
Take us through it, Nick.
I'm still recovering. Before we get to that, let's go through the other results because I'll save the best
Save
for
the
last.
best till last. Yeah, fair enough.
Northcote City 1-0 winners on the road against Werribee. Takes them into 5th. They've jumped Bulleen on the ladder, which is quite incredible. A win against Werribee. Werribee at the moment hanging on for dear life to basically stay in. They still with the chance. Basically, as a result, with a helping hand from Lang Warren, who came from a goal down, bit of hail that helped along the way in that game.
Yeah, well, can I
stem the momentum? Yeah, just quickly.
Can
how
I talk about that game? Crazy, really. Because let's not forget, this was a really important game too. Lang Warren needed a win to guarantee their survival, their safety in the NPL 2. Brunswick City, also a team who are fighting for their survival level. In ladder positions, I think not separated by anything at all in the NPL 2 table.
No, they were 2 points clear, Lang Warren. They won
At the
21
time?
points because of 21 points Lang Warren. Yeah.
Yes, because of the thing. Because of the thing that happened to Brunswick that we don't talk about.
Oh, we can talk about
the points deduction for those who don't remember or weren't listening to previous episodes. What were you doing? Really, really, really good game. But called off, or players were called in after 30 minutes because, as many people know, the heavens opened. Hail was flying down. It was very funny because at the start of the game, I brought a couple of friends to the game actually to support, to support football. To support football. I don't have allegiances. I'm a neutral observer. And you could see off in the distance behind Dunstan Reserve the clouds and the lightning in the background. And my friend to my right kept going, I think those clouds are passing us. And then me and the friend on the left is like, I don't think it's going to rain. I think it's fine. I think it's just thunder and lightning, no actual downpour. And then I'm sitting here in the middle like, it's definitely getting darker. The clouds are definitely getting closer. I definitely saw and then we were like, oh, those raindrops are really large. And then one donked me on the head and I was like, oh no, that is definitely not a drop of rain. That is in fact hail. But anyway, all the players were called in after 30 minutes. Confusion was happening. There's not a huge club room area at Brunswick. So everyone was huddled under what is a pretty small club rooms area. Brunswick didn't know what to do. They just started pumping like dance music over the speakers while people were like, referees, where's the game? Eventually brought it back out. They played the rest of the second half. Mainly to test the pitch because the pitch had taken on so much water. They were like, we'll play the final 13 minutes of the first half. If the pitch is all good, we'll play the second. If not, we'll call it in. Brunswick scored in that period. They had a number of good chances to actually win the game outright. Halftime happened. But because of all the delay, because of the setting sun, they didn't want to call the players back into a full half-time. So they did like a AFL-style three-quarter time break. The premiership quarter as players just huddled up either side of the halfway line for like a 5-minute mini break, then played the second 45. Brunswick started the strongest, but they didn't They had a shot off the post through Austin Wong. Okay, that's enough now. That's enough now. I was also marching around offering people to get their NPL record. No one was interested, but I tried.
NPL record, $4. Get your NPL record.
Didn't do great trade in the hail, unfortunately. But yeah, Brunswick again started the second half of this game really, really strongly. They had a shot off the post from Austin Wong, a one-on-one that could have killed the game. And then after that, they flagged. Langwarren had the ticker. Langwarren had the legs through to the full 90, and while they probably weren't the best throughout the 90, they had a real rally in the 30 minutes. They put on all manner of chances on goal that they should have scored. Tom Young's got one, and then right at the death, he grabbed a second. He could have had more, and yeah, it's a tough one for Brunswick. They could have had the game to bed before that 30-minute period, but Langy is safe for another season.
For another year.
In the NPL too, and again, I hate to repeat myself, but another team who it'll be a fascinating off-season for.
Absolutely. Well, just running through the rest of the results, Kingston 1, Goulburn Valley Suns 1. Takes Kingston 1 point closer to safety, but barely.
That is
a very bad result.
Criminal dropping of points at home. I know their record at home has been terrible this season.
But still, against GV Suns.
You can't.
Absolutely. No disrespect to GV Suns who could still stay up. But I mean, they went behind Kingston. They actually put one back through Sakizada and in the end weren't able to scrape out a winner, but they go into the final day only a point clear. Manningham 1, Brunswick Juventus 2 keeps the... I tell you what, we need that promotion race to stay open because it just creates as much drama as possible.
It does.
It was looking like Manningham were going to win, Lachie. They were up 1-0 at Petty's Reserve.
Honestly, immense credit to Brunswick Juventus because Manningham... if nothing else, a hard team to beat. To come back from 1-0 down against them, to turn it around. Especially because Manningham, I think, beat them earlier this year or at least snatched a point at CB Smith. Massive result for them.
Well, the goal came from Nick Volgaris, which opened the scoring before Brewis and Peter Sawan, their mid-season signing, scored the winner. Obviously, Gianfranco Pellizzeri back on the sideline after suspension. Win for Brunswick, keeps them in it. North Geelong 3, Bulleen Lions 0. We're going to have Anthony Bundelvatz on the show today to take us through it from North Geelong, but unfortunately we've had to postpone that chat for another week. North Geelong wrapping up promotion, well-deserved after a very, very solid season. Bulleen, I mean, they were testing them in the early bits, but in the end, North Geelong just running away with it. A double from Caleb Mikulich and Rowan Opperman with the third to put that one to bed. So a big win for North Geelong.
Jukic's favourite NPL 2 player, Ryan
really?
Opperman. Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice little tidbit. But that puts them...
You always ask him about North Geelong and he goes, Ryan Opperman, what a player.
Yeah, well, he hasn't got Noah Scott to go on about right now, which is unfortunate. But nonetheless, big result for North Geelong. They'll be in the top tier next year. It's great to see after a great season for them. But...
Hey, just quickly, Nick, you mentioned the Northcote Werribee result, right?
I did, yeah.
Just wanted to give a quick shout out to someone who returned from injury in this game. Leo Athanasiou, who's former Northcote City best and fairest. He had a knee injury in 2020 and he's had such a tough time on that road to recovery. He didn't even play in 2021. He's missed nearly all of the season, but finally, with one game to go, he's back. So
sensational.
So pleased to see Leo Athanasiou make his return to playing for Northcote, and I'm sure that the boys at John Cain are happy to have him
absolutely.
back because he's an important figure at the club and a good player, a really good player as well.
Very, very buoyant scenes down there at Kotze's corner after the win as well.
It was because he was on.
Yeah, he was. And you know what the great thing is? It's a good end to the season for Northcote. I mean, that was looking like a tough year for them, but they've really turned the corner under their new manager, Schoolis, and right now I think they're going to be a team to keep an eye on over the off-season because they're a team that probably have ambitions to be back in the top tier of NPL Victoria. So nonetheless... We're burying the lead here, Lachie. Game of the round. Friday night footy. It was all on the line. It was, I feel like I probably could play a bit of the Fox footy theme in the background, but nonetheless, we're going to leave that for just the time being. Moreland City against Pascoe Vale at CB Smith Reserve. I was lucky enough to call this game with Craig Filer. I got to say, the heavens were opening up. Craig messaged me before the game and he said... it is, I forgot what the word, throwing it down in the west down in Werribee. And that's a very English term. So I actually had to Google what does throwing it down mean. So I thought, who is throwing what? And then, but where I was in Templestowe, it was dry. So I'm thinking, oh, geez, the rain better hold off.
Nick was thinking, reading his phone, thinking Craig's got into a fight, like some Johns. Like, oh, sorry, I'm throwing down in Werribee.
Is he throwing it down with a Werribee player or something? Anyways, nonetheless. Nonetheless, the rain held off because good because it's CB Smith Reserve, as you do know. If you're not calling on the scaffold and if it's raining, there's no cover there. Or if you're going to call in the grandstand, there's a big pole in the way. So, lucky enough, the rain held off. It was a brilliant turnout, Lachie.
It really was.
I reckon over 1,000 people there easily at CB Smith. The juniors were out and about for Pascoe Vale. There was a really good vibe. The Moreland City fans were out and about. Obviously, it is a local derby. Yeah, the vibes were sensational. And there was just this real sort of like grand final feel to it that you felt like, all right, this has proper stakes right now. Like you can feel the excitement. And within 30 seconds, Moreland City were ahead. Fletcher Fulton, basically straight from kickoff. What a goal it was.
Yeah.
Bad mistake
what a player,
at the back.
Fletcher Fulton is.
Sensational
One to watch
player.
out for if Moreland City do get promoted.
Yeah. Even if they don't,
he might get picked up by another team. Yeah.
So Fletcher Fulton gives Moreland City the lead inside the opening minute. But then after that, Paco started to build themselves into the game. They sort of weathered that early storm, and then Terrence Carter got the equaliser. Good finish from the corner. I mean, he kind of scuffed it.
Finish.
It's kind of scuffed it, but it went right in the top corner. No chance for Condalian. And then from there, it looked as if Paco were going to win. Even after Miguel Alvarez Diaz got sent off, he got a yellow card for dissent and then a really silly challenge for the second.
Both silly.
And it was
so
for a stamp.
avoidable.
Sent off. Just a brain fade. And in the end, I mean, as I said, Paco were the team that were asking more of the questions going forward. They brought on Joffrey and Cosso. They brought on Bilal Habib. They brought on Thomas Harris. But back the other way, Moreland City was still threatening because the two chances they had in the second half, Lachie, to young Max Basetto, who I'm a massive fan of. I really rate this kid. He's only just turned 18. He's had a brilliant season, 9 goals this year. Son of, obviously, the president, Morris Basetto. Start of the second half, has a great opportunity to open the scoring, flashes it over the bar. Then again, later on, a similar play, cross in from Apaya Kuno, and Max Basetto just had to put it either side of Alex Pavlidis. But somehow Pav, our man Pav, got a hand to it for one of the saves of the season. Not even going to BS you here, guys. It was a brilliant save. He somehow got a hand to it. I looked at Craig Fowler and I thought that he didn't get a hand to it, but he somehow did. Max Basetto, I felt so sorry for him because he was doing everything right except putting the ball in the back of the net, and he had such a good game.
Oh, and when that chance was missed, because like you said, when Moreland City did come the other way in transition, they were hot knife through butter. Yeah. They were creating super high quality looks. When Max Basetto missed that chance, you thought that was it.
I thought that was it. I thought that was it. That's going to take the wind out of their sails. And Pack Up the other way were looking dangerous. I mean, they were still going for it through Nick Georgopoulos, Joffrey and Cosso were getting forward. Aiden Musadinagic's second half was one of the best second half performances I've seen all season. And good. He was brilliant. And the fact that obviously Paco now can't get promoted, he's one player that I would love to see in the top tier of NPL football next season. It's a shame it won't be for Paco, but this guy, certainly a player to keep an eye on. They moved him further up the pitch after the red card. He was just terrorising Byron Figueroa for that early stages. But then in the end, with one little play at the end, it looked like Bilal Habib was through back the other way, Lachie. He scuffs his shot, saved by Condalian. One play up the other end. Basically, it was like a boom crash opera between Mohammed Habib and I forgot which Moreland City player it was. I think it might be Matt Spall. It was Matt Spall. They collided on the edge of the area. Ball falls through. Gets to James. It was a great ball from Christos Theodorakopoulos. This beautiful way to lift the ball. Jamie Latham, lovely touchback across goal. And Apaya Kuno, with the last kick of the game, wins it for Moreland City.
They scored with basically the first and last kick of the game.
And the scenes afterwards, Lachie, were just incredible because players like Corey Thomas, Apaya Kuno, Andrew Viola, who wasn't playing, Matt Spall as well, they are the remaining players of that team from 2018.
Well, the team that went so close, yeah.
And you could see the emotion on Apaya Kuno. He's had such a tough year. This guy has scored so many goals. He's won Golden Boots. He's represented South Sudan with his feet obviously down here. Tough year, only 10 appearances.
Hampered by injury, yeah.
Scored only his second goal of the season, wins it for Moreland City. It's heartbreak for Pascoe Vale, who will miss promotion. In my opinion, they're good enough to be a top-tier team. They're both good enough, in my opinion, to be top-tier teams. It's a shame that there could only be one in the end. A point would have been enough to keep Paco in it for another week, but Moreland City, they are right in with a chance still to win the championship And it sets up for this weekend, which I'll have the joy of calling, Lachie. I'm very glad that I've got myself on this one.
Yeah, you did elbow a few people out of this one too.
I did, because to be fair, I can't do any of the games on Sunday, so this is the one that I could do on
How
Saturday.
convenient.
Moreland City versus North Geelong Warriors to decide the championship, to decide whether Moreland City go up, because if they don't win and Brunswick Juventus beats Werribee at CB Smith Reserve on Saturday, Lachie, Brunswick Juventus go up. I spoke to Morris Bassetto after the game and a few of the other Moreland City guys, and they said, Nick, please don't jinx it. We are not there yet. Because if anyone knows about heartbreak at the last minute, it's Moreland City fans and the Moreland City people. It's going to be a great atmosphere down at Campbell Reserve on Saturday. I'd get there if you can. It's going to be a massive, massive game. But just running through the rest of the results, Lachie, obviously still the relegation playoff. One spot to decide among 3 teams this weekend, with Kingston, Brunswick City and Werribee battling to stay up. 2 will stay up, 1 will go down with GV Suns for that playoff. Juventus obviously against Werribee away. Brunswick City going to Goulburn Valley. That's a game Brunswick should win. Kingston up against Bulleen, and of course Langwarrin against Manningham and Northcote against Pascoe Vale. Lachie, let's get some predictions. Who's going up and who joins GV Suns in the playoffs?
Oh God. Well, the thing is, I'm not sure whether we made this clear enough or not, but a draw is not enough for Moreland City.
No.
It is dependent. Brunswick Juventus have got to get the win against a Werribee City side who are also
desperate,
fighting for the chance to guarantee a spot in the NPL2 for next year and not be in that pro-rel playoff spot that still remains wide open. So Brunswick have still got to win, which is a fundamental. The thing is they play at CB Smith, so that's a good thing. But if Brunswick Juventus win, a draw for Moreland City is not enough. And now you might be sitting at home thinking, well, North Geelong are promoted, they're going to take it easy, they're going to have their little promotion party away from home at Campbell Reserve in Coburg. What's the harm?
They've got to win the premiership, for God's sake.
No. North Geelong they have not come this far to not finish top, to not win it all, to not win the title as well. So they will not be playing like a team who have...
And they just need a point.
Yeah.
They just need a point.
And Moreland City need to win against the team who just have to not lose.
Yeah.
That's
dangerous.
That is not a good equation for victory. Again, contingent on results elsewhere, but you just think if Brunswick get that win, if Brunswick Juventus get that win over Werribee, which they should, that's going to do it for them. But we could be set for
incredible
football 24. This is my actual. I am going to say that Moreland City go up.
Okay.
I'm going to say that Moreland City go up. But my strongest prediction is that my football 24 on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. will be
worked out,
exploding.
Yeah.
Absolutely exploding. I actually can foresee a situation where Werribee are ahead and Brunswick Juventus, come back from behind. Or where Brunswick Juventus are ahead and Werribee come
from behind.
Or Moreland City are level with North Geelong and get a late winner.
Yeah.
Anything
could happen.
I think there is going to be drama. I just hope that all the drama hasn't been used up on that game on Friday night, because it was genuinely, Nick, and I'm not just saying this because you and Craig were doing the game, genuinely one of the best games I've ever watched. Not in terms of the quality,
so much fun,
but in terms of the spectacle, in terms of how good I felt about football after coming away from that game. It genuinely, in recent memory, it was right up there.
It won the cockles.
If we had an eternity of time on this podcast, we could use it as a springboard to talk about why promotion and relegation is needed at every level of football, but we don't have time for that.
Just quickly.
So I'm going to say Moreland City go up.
I'm actually agree. I reckon Moreland City are going to go up with a point. And I reckon Brunswick Juventus are not going to win. I think Werribee are going to get something. I genuinely think Werribee are going to get something. But for me, I don't think it's going to be enough, because I think Bulleen's going to beat Kingston. And I think that point will put Kingston goal difference clear. Brunswick will beat GV Suns.
Yep.
And Werribee will play in that promotion relegation playoff.
So they'll get a result over Brunswick.
Yeah.
And yet they'll still be in the promotion relegation.
There'll be a draw.
Nick, you're a cruel man.
I am a cruel man. Just quickly, Lachie, just running through obviously we've basically gone through NPL 3. So just looking ahead to this weekend, it's championship decider, Preston, Melbourne City, basically. Preston up against Box Hill and Melbourne City against Springvale White Eagles. They're both on Saturday. Melbourne Victory locked into, they still want to get third spots. They get GV Suns in that playoff, while Western United looking to lock it in with a win against Geelong. Nunawading still in with a chance, but they have to beat Melbourne Victory and hope that Western United lose, but catch up on that goal difference as well, which is going to be something, because on goals scored, Western United have them clear as well. So that's going to be an interesting one. Then, of course, Springvale and Ballarat City fighting off for that last relegate. Who's going to stay up out of that? Lachie, my prediction is Preston win it. And I think Western United locking fourth spot as well.
Josh said Louis Osevsky, his philosophy is that he doesn't play for draws. Well, he may not, but I think that's what he's going to get, and that'll be enough for them. Yep, and I think in terms of the relegation battle, Lachie, I think the team that will be heading down to State 1 is going to be... I think it's going to be Ballarat just by default, because I don't think they're going to be able to get all 3 points against North Sunshine, who have ended this season pretty well. I think they're going to go down quite unlucky. Springvale will lose, but Ballarat won't win. I'm going to go against you, Nick. Okay. I'm going to say Ballarat save themselves. And just quickly, Lachie, in terms of the teams coming into NPL 3 next year, because we have to. This is bonkers. There are 4 teams in Men's State League 1 Southeast. Who can go up for 2 spots. Beaumaris and Malvern are a tie. Beaumaris on 45, Malvern 44, Burundara 44, Mornington 43. Your team, Mornington. Of course, that as well. All simultaneous kickoffs on Saturday. So lose my job. Burundara hosting South Springvale. Malvern City on the road against Eltham Redbacks. But Beaumaris versus Mornington as well. That is going to be massive. 2 of those teams will go up and join Caroline Springs, George Cross, and Essendon Royals. The Royal Ascension over the weekend. Congrats to them. Absolutely. Congratulations to them. Lachie, quickly, predictions for the top tier, the final rounds before finals. It's been an incredible season, but there's still so much to go off this with finals, but the final home and away leg is here. Let's start off at Avenger Park. Avondale versus South Melbourne. Obviously, all these games as well. You're going to make me Sunday. Predict this game first. Actually, all right, let's leave it then. Yeah. Eastern Lions versus Heidelberg. Do Eastern Lions finally win a game at home? You want to do it, don't you? You so want to do it. I want to do it. Oh, no, Heidelberg 3-1. Heidelberg 3-1. I wanted to do it so badly, though. I could tell. I wouldn't be shocked if it happens. Heidelberg wins, but it's not going to be easy. 2-1 win. They're going to have to fight for it. 1-0 Heidelberg. Yeah, they'll win. They'll win, but whether it's enough, whole nother question. Let's go to the Deb Rubber. Altona St. Albans. I'm going 1-1. 0-0. Actually, 6-4. Why not? Why not? Oakley versus Hume City. I'm going to say Oakley 3-1 winners. Underrated game, this one. These two sides had a really good, really close game last time they met at Valley Park. I'm going to say 3-2 Oakley. Okay. 3-2 Oakley. Interesting. Dandy Thunder versus Green Gully. George Andrews. 2-2. Dandy Thunder 2-1. I think Green Gully playing on Thursday is going to hamper them. I'm going to say 2-2. Yep. For the same reasons, more just like I don't think those reasons will be enough to get Thunder over the line. Port Melbourne, Melbourne Knights. I'm going Port Melbourne 2-0. 2-1. Port, just to be clear. Dandy City, Bentley Greens. I'm going Bentley 1-0. They've had a full week of rest. I think 1 Bentley. And of course, Avondale versus South Melbourne. Lachie, I'm going Avondale 3. Leaving it to last. I'm going Avondale 3. I think Avondale should have shocked me and put it in halfway through. Avondale wins 3-2. Oh God! I think they shock South Melbourne and they go in with a wet sail going into finals. As much as they are playing on tomorrow night. 2-all draw. Oh, so in terms of based our predicted on my predictions, Heidelberg will get through ahead of Avondale. So. Mine don't change. Mine is going to be South Melbourne, Port Melbourne, Oakley, Green Gully, Avondale and Bentley. Same 6 in the same order. So it means Oakley versus Bentley in the first final. Doherty Cup rematch in Green Gully, Avondale. Look, from a pure football, I wish we could have 8 teams in the finals. I know. Can we just make it a bit easier? Can we have a playing tournament? Oh, can we just have a playing tournament? Like, honestly, it'd be great. It's like how good would it be? I do want to see Avondale play in the finals. How good would it be to still have a pro-rel playoff
in NPL 1 to NPL 2 so we could have Paco or Brunswick Juventus taking on, Hume City.
Yeah.
This week.
You're preaching to the converted here, Nick.
Madonna, come on, FV. Let's do it.
But yeah, I think you underestimate how fired up South will be to thwart Avondale in this
I think
game.
so, but I think Avondale are going to rise to the occasion and get
Okay, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that
It's
happen.
gonna be a great game.
I'm going to stick
Awesome
with
game.
Geelong.
Awesome game of football.
I do
Looking
love
forward to it.
Desmond's in the predictions.
Yeah,
love it too.
absolutely. All right, Lachie, time for us to say goodbye here on the NPL Victoria pod. We'll be back next week, probably on Monday next week as well. We'll start a bit early. Obviously, we'll look ahead to the first week of finals and, of course, the promotion, relegation, playoffs and review at what's going to be a chaotic final round of NPL Victoria, NPL Victoria 2, NPL Victoria 3, and even the Men's State League 1. Who is coming to NPL next season? Can't wait for it, Lachie. But wherever you are, get down to your local ground on Saturday or Sunday. If it's in any of the leagues, support your teams. It's going to be an incredible final day. Stay tuned to NPL.tv as well.
Make sure you've downloaded Football 24.
Especially for
We're
NPL
not
2.
sponsored. We probably should be, really,
Yeah,
by
I know.
Football
So,
24.
hello, Football 24.
It's a great application.
Absolutely. But anyways, Lachie,
Introduce NPL 3, though. We're missing NPL 3.
that actually would be great. Even State League 1.
NPLW as well.
Yeah, all of them.
Lift your game.
I agree.
I do love you, though, Football 24.
Anyways, myself, Nick Tavano, and Lachie Flanagan, we're back next week. And miss any of it, head over to the podcast platforms. But we'll be back very, very soon.